Afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started because it's already 10 past the hour. I want to thank you for coming on your lunch hour, hopefully to learn a little bit more about nutrition, how to incorporate it a little bit better in your everyday lifestyles, how to increase your awareness in what you're purchasing, what you're getting, what you're putting into your bodies. So, how many of you have already signed up and are on the Wellness Journey website, 95210.org? Yes, I see a couple hands. Good. So you're going to want to make sure to log in there, use your FIU credentials, since that's the portal that we're going to be using for the entire wellness program. So every one of our services is going to be on the portal. Any of our announcements, there's going to be on the portal. So again, that's 95210.org. Log in with your FIU credentials. If you have any questions or you want more information in regards to the website, email me at pawswellness@fiu.edu, and I'll be able to send you all the information, the participant packets, how to log in, how to create your profile, how to edit your profile, and you'll be able then to see. Since we have the wellness journey that's going on currently, once we're done with the wellness journey, we're going to be doing a mindfulness and meditation program, which is going to be a 3-week program with Isabel Alfonso Victoria. And then we're also concurrently going to be doing a completely digital program for a Strive for 5 program, which will be run on there. And the Strive for 5, you're going to choose 2 out of 5 things that you're going to incorporate into your lifestyle for 5 weeks. So henceforth, 555, Strive for 5. So you're going to try to lose 5 pounds in the 5 weeks, so about 1 pound a week. That's one that you can choose from, or getting 5 cups of water every single day, or getting 5 days a week of 30 minutes of exercise, or doing 5 mindful minutes every single day, or I won't tell you the last one, you're going to have to check it out. Okay? So with that, without any further ado then, I want to introduce to you Lucette Talamas from Baptist Health. She's the registered dietitian for the community health outreach. Yes? So I want to thank Lucette and Baptist Health for coming out today to help us increase our knowledge, awareness when it comes to putting things in our mouths and shopping out at the store. So without any other hesitation, I want to let Lucette take over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's good to be here. So I understand it's your lunch hour. I understand some of you may have to walk out early. So any information you get, that's great. I understand there's also people watching. Hello. So there's a handout also that you have in front of you. You have several handouts, but there's one about the label reading. So all the information today is on, pretty much all the important information is on that handout of the label, and you can refer to that. I have in the front table some packages that will be able to practice because I can't take you to the grocery store, but I can bring some of the grocery store to you. But label reading is a skill, so I'm happy to be here to help teach on this topic. It applies to everyone, whether you don't have any conditions, whether you do have conditions like blood pressure, high blood pressure, cholesterol, trying to manage weight, or just trying to take care of your health for prevention, because that's as important, on the side of prevention and also management of conditions and diseases. So like Nathan just said, before you eat something, if it comes in a package, we should be looking at the label. Okay, so again, it's if it comes in a package, which a lot of us are eating food on the go, or, well, I'll start, whether we're going in the grocery store, like where are you going to practice these skills that we're going to learn today? In the grocery store is first and foremost most important. But if you shop the perimeter of the grocery store, you'll notice there's plenty of fruits and vegetables, especially, that don't have labels, and that we don't have to worry about. So I heard a conversation about pre-cut carrots versus whole carrots. I care most importantly that you're eating carrots. And then from there, you can decide if you want pre-cut or not cut, because this is the fresher, best foods for disease prevention, fighting conditions. These are your vitamins, your minerals that people try to bottle and sell and make profits off of these pills. But it really comes from a diet based on fruits and vegetables. It doesn't mean you have to convert to vegetarianism. It doesn't mean all of a sudden, you can still have some of your protein, and that's a whole other talk that we can talk about. but eating more fruits and vegetables should be the first goal. Then we're going to obviously talk about packaged foods, and other places that you may be able to practice the label is at chain restaurants. And it's not just the McDonald's, it's any location that has 20 or more, or any restaurant that has 20 or more locations. So now labeling is a law for these food establishments, we can say. It's not just fast food. So when you start to see these numbers of calories and sodium, again, we can make a little more sense of what this information means. So, but most importantly, it's something you should practice at the grocery store. A lot of us may do quick trips, but hopefully with some of the skills today, your next trip might take a little more time. But the idea is that you start questioning the things that you usually buy and bring home. But once you start finding products that work for you, then your trips will get quick again. But even as a dietitian, no matter how much school, I can still buy up something in a rush and at home realize, wait, I didn't look at the ingredient list. Why did I buy this? So it's something we all, can still come short sometimes, but it's a skill that's really important and a habit that, wait, let me not just look at the front. Let's look at that nutrition fact label. Now, as I mentioned, fruits and vegetables are emphasized. Just a little brief overview about healthy eating. We don't have the pyramid anymore. We have a plate, and those here have a copy of our Baptist plate, which is kind of like instead of cartoons, it has some pictures. But the idea is similar. It goes from half a plate of fruits and vegetables to we open up the plate to be half vegetables. That's how much vegetables we should be including, especially at lunch and dinner, unless you like some veggie omelets for breakfast. But it doesn't abandon the protein and the grains, okay? So that's a balanced plate. You have your protein and your grains and some vegetables and some fruit off to the side. Again, giving a lecture about healthy eating would be a whole other 1 hour topic. So we'll get into the skills side of nutrition facts label. It may be confusing, overwhelming, even for people with nutrition degrees. So don't worry. We're going to break it down into 6 steps, which you have highlighted in front of you. Now, if you already got ahead and looked at the handout in front of you, it's let's talk about in the news update, there's a current label and then a future label that is actually we're in the future, it's already coming out. So there's a new label. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, oversees the labeling process for manufacturing companies. And they actually, after more than 20 years, have updated the look of the label. So you'll notice there's the current and the new. You also have flyers for grocery tours. I do give grocery tours every 2 weeks. Right now, that's how it's scheduled. Where I'm noticing in the grocery store, as we give the tours, a lot more products are transforming to the new label. So that's why I'm happy to give you this handout. So you're just like, what's going on? The main difference visually is that you'll see the calories like really big and in bold. And that's how you know that it's the new label. But in general, the information we're going to cover is the same for the new and the current and the new. The same skills are learned. It's just now it's visually different, and they include other areas. And mainly, the 2 I'll focus on is vitamin D. That's exciting that now it's required to be on the label. And the most important, I think, is the sugars. Okay, now we can determine which one is added and which one is not, because there will be a separate line for added sugars. So as I go through today's talk, we'll focus more on that. But that's definitely really, really good news that the new label now includes a line for added sugars, because in case you didn't know, there's added sugars and then there's natural sugars. We should have no concern for natural sugar. The concern is all the added sugars added during processing. Okay, so finally, but we're going to start at the top. This label example is color coded. So that's not how all labels are. We know that, but for teaching purposes, we'll start at the top. Step 1, before you start glancing at calories and vitamins, we can't skip this part. You have to start with step 1, okay? And that's serving size. So at the very top, right under nutrition facts, you'll see a serving size. Now, does that mean that's how much you should eat? No, I mean, it's up to you to decide. But generally, it is a standard. A lot of times it does match what a typical serving should be, but it doesn't mean that's how much you should eat. Maybe you need more, maybe you need less. So in this case, it says serving size 1 cup. Servings per container is also important. In this example on the screen, can anyone see what it says? I don't know if it matches the handout in front of you. Let me see the color handout, the other one. Sorry. There's all these colorful, helpful handouts. Okay, I think, yeah, this one should be the same. So The one that's just one label and it's all colorful. What's the servings per container? 2. So if you ate the whole container, what happens? You ate 2 cups, and then what happens to the rest of the label? It doubles. So that's the main point. So everything under will double. Is that good or bad? It depends what it is. It depends if it's a snack, if it's a meal. It all depends. But you should be aware that we should always start with the serving size. If you look at different cereals, a cereal might be a half cup, it might be 1 cup. So sometimes when all of a sudden, if you're just comparing the amount of fiber, that's not fair because it might be for a half cup of one and a whole cup of another one. So you always have to start with the serving size. You can't just jump down. I think I've said that enough, right? Where are we starting? Serving size. Okay, next one, which I'll kind of breeze through because we prefer not to focus on calories. Calories are units of food energy. We need energy to survive. So being low calorie doesn't necessarily mean because you need calories to survive. Okay, so if you're having a meal that's 200 or 300 calories, that's usually not enough. That's like a big snack. Okay, but if you're having a snack that's 300 calories, we need to talk about snacking. So I like talking about calories when you're looking for a goal of looking for a healthy snack, because when it comes to meals, females and males need different requirements. Now we see the lighter calorie meals at restaurants that are less than 600 or less than 500, which if you do 500 times 3, it could be a 1500 calorie diet, which sounds like, okay, it just always depends on the person, right? But when it comes to snacking, which a lot of us may pick up packaged foods with labels for snacks, this is where we can start, looking at calories to see, was that like a small meal or a small snack? So what do I have here? Where's my rule of thumb? Okay, so the tip is for snacking purposes, if you're going to look at calories, something around 40 calories will be, or less than 100 calories will be low calorie. Something around 100 calories can be good. Now, reaching more than 250 calories for a snack, which remember, maybe one serving was 200 calories, but if you ate the whole package, maybe that turned into 500 calories of a snack. So we have to be mindful of that. But that will already be too many calories for a snack. And if you find yourself eating more than that for a snack, you probably needed a meal, right? Like you were hungry, So what have food companies done? They have taken these recommendations and all of a sudden you see 100 calorie snacks. You see Oreos packaged in certain ways to only be 100 calories. That's where calories don't really count that way. We need to look at nutrition. The original 100 calorie snack is any serving of fruit, okay? With the exception of those extra large bananas, you would have to cut in half. But with that exception, a serving of fruit can be usually a cup of fruit. Think about your fist, the size of an apple, the size of a peach that, whether it's a little smaller or larger, it's going to be about 180 to 100 calories, which you're fine. That's the original 100 calorie snack that doesn't have a label. Do you have a question?
How many times a day we should snack? Just 2 in between meals?
So for adults, when you eat 3 meals a day, we have to talk about meals first. It depends on your lifestyle and if you exercise, if you need to incorporate a snack. So the most common time for adults to snack or working adults, is you have your lunch time right now between 12 and 1. And I don't even see a lot of you eating your lunch now. But let's say you have your lunch now. What time is dinner in your case? What time?
About 7.
7. So 7 hours is too much between 2 meals. So we have to plan a snack around what time? In the middle. So digestion of a normal meal will be about 4 hours. So that means you're not overeating or undereating. It's normal to be hungry in about 4 hours. Okay. I know people when I give lunch and learn sometimes go to, I'm not throwing companies out there, but lean cuisines and those frozen meals. A lot of times the total calories are less or about 300 calories. That's not going to keep you full for 4 hours. That's expected. But anyways, if you're eating a normal lunch in about 4 hours, you're going to feel not starving, but you're going to feel like, I need a little something. But what do we usually do around 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock? What do we do? Coffee. That's not nutrition. So I'm not against you having coffee unless you're doing the coffee with the milk and the cream and the whipped cream and that's another story. But if you're just doing some plain coffee with minimal added sugar or sweetener, we also have to think about a snack. So you're not abandoning a necessary snack time. Okay. And then that will bridge you to your 7 o'clock dinner. Okay, so adults, typically working adults, need that one afternoon snack. Whether it's dinner, you might go to the gym at 6 o'clock, and still you need that like 4 o'clock snack to, so you can have some energy. With kids, they need 2 snacks. They're growing, they need 3 meals and usually 2 snacks a day, or teenagers and kids. Okay, now we're going to get into the fun part of limiting nutrients to limit, and then the good nutrients that we know vitamins and minerals are good for. But this is probably the emphasis of the talk because this is where our health ties into the label. So sometimes if there's, technically 6 steps, but if there's 3 things you're going to walk away with, I call it the 3 S's. So serving size, we're going to focus on saturated fat and sodium. Okay, so if there's like 3 main points to walk away with, it's those 3 things. Looking at a whole label, it's also a lot of information. So again, if you don't know where to start with those 3 things at the grocery store or, with your packaged food items. Why? We'll talk first about fats. Notice that there's a total fat line, and that's in bold. And then under, it's not in bold. It says saturated and trans. That means that's part of the total fat. Fat, is that good or bad for us? That's the right answer. Very good. It depends on the kind of fat, and there's 2 kinds. So what are the 2 kinds? Very good. Saturated and unsaturated. The one required to be on the label is saturated. And is that one the good one or the bad one? The bad one. The bad one. Okay? So fat is good for the diet if it's the right type of fat. Fat is a good nutrient. Okay? If you think eating too much fat turns into body fat, that's not true. Eating too much fat, protein, and or carbs, any overeating of anything is what turns into storage fat. So there's this misconception several decades ago of low fat is the way to go, like Atkins diet. It's not the way to go. You need the right type of fat in your diet. Okay? So, yes.
There is one that's called poly something.
So we have fat, we have unsaturated and saturated. In the unsaturated category, which is the good one, we have different types, poly and mono unsaturated. So poly is a type of unsaturated fat, mono is a type of unsaturated fat. The one I like to throw out there, which everyone knows, omega-3s, right? You hear, it's like the favorite story for news reports of omega-3s. But what are omega-3s? What's the whole scientific? Is anyone here from the science department? What's the whole scientific?
Fish oil.
But it's a type of fat, right? So it's omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acid. It's a type of unsaturated fat. So omega-3 is not this magical thing that's out there. It's just a healthy type of fat found in fish. Okay. Trans fat, the good news is similar to our label changing. Oh, a question? Similar to our label changing, the FDA is like finally doing all these great things. Trans fats have been required to be eliminated from processing. Trans fat is a type of fat. So we said there's 2 types, but then technically there's a third. But this one's a man-made fat. So trans fat is the man-made fat that during processing, they get a normal type of fat, whether it's saturated or unsaturated. During processing, they hydrogenate it, which is another chemical thing, and then they turn it into a trans fat. Why? It makes the product shelf stable. So it's concerning for anything that can be on a shelf for a long time, especially certain cream products like creamers, dairy creamers for your coffee. Take a look at your label. Another hidden one are some Cuban crackers. Look, there's labels in the ones in the store that could have it, and any type of baked good. Okay, so any type of cookie, sweet, like you would have to look for partially hydrogenated oil. I have that example a little later on. But the good news is that it's going to be taken out of our food system. Yes, you had a question. How can we know what? The source of omega-3? It's not on the label, so it's just through knowledge, I can tell you. So the best sources of omega-3 come from fatty fish. You probably have heard that. It's salmon, tuna, herring, I believe mackerel, sardines. I'm sorry, vegetarian. So there are vegetarian sources. But for example, I'm quoting the American Heart Association. They recommend 2 servings of fatty fish per day or per week. Sorry, 2 servings of. So that's why sometimes people eat salmon twice a week because that gets you your omega 3s. Now, the type of it keeps breaking down. There's different types of omega 3s. That one in fatty fish is the one that the body uses. The ones in the plant are ALA and the other forms, ALA and DHA, I believe. So the plant sources of omega 3 have to convert into the type found in the fish, and everyone's body converts it differently. So it's not to say there's no benefits in the plant sources, it's just we don't know how much is converted into functional omega 3. But it's still great. So I know you're waiting for the answer. Here it is. I'm sorry, I like to explain things. The plant sources can be the flaxseed, but it's inside the flaxseed. So you're either buying crushed flaxseed or flaxseed oil, which you don't cook with, it's just cold oil, is great sources. The walnuts, chia seeds. So notice that they're all like certain types of nuts and seeds, not all of them, but certain that have the plant-based omega 3. You can supplement. There's liver oil, or sorry, not that's for vitamin D, but there's also supplements. But American Heart Association, we always want to go food first philosophy. Try to have your fatty fish twice a week. So that's your salmon and tuna are the most common sources of if you're pescatarian, but if you're vegetarian, definitely you can incorporate the plant sources of the omega 3. Everyone's body is different. Okay, was there a question? There, up here.
Could it damage if you eat like every single day tuna? I have my husband.
You don't need, no, it's only twice a week. So the concern with seafood every day is if the seafood has mercury. So tuna and salmon are actually low to medium. I forget exactly, but they're not high sources of mercury. So if you eat it 2 or 3 times a week, you're fine. There's certain populations of concern, pregnant women especially, if you don't want to pass that recommendation. But if you eat it every day, yeah, it's not the best idea.
All right, I'm eating it every day because
Yeah.
so I'm gonna
How nice he eats what you make him though. Yes. No, it's just how the fish are. Fish eat other fish, and so it depends. Like usually, the larger the fish, the higher the mercury, or if they're like bottom feeders. So there's stuff way beyond my knowledge. But the point is that fish eat other fish that have mercury in those fish. So then they store it. They store it in themselves, whether it's farmed or fresh. Yeah, yeah. It's how the totem pole works with the fish. But like shark is very high, lobster's like medium, but it's okay. We don't get that many lobster dinners, right? But you can have your lobster once a year, celebrate. But it's the concern is when, like, if you look at several days or a week, how many times are you choosing high mercury fish? Okay, but salmon and tuna are fine, and those are the common ones, and it's safe. If you add sardines to a salad, you get some omega 3s. Sure. Okay, we deviated. So trans fats will be eliminated from our food supply because it's a public health concern for our cholesterol levels. Why are we talking about fats? Yes, healthy fats are a healthy nutrient, but the unhealthy fats, which are listed on the label, saturated and trans, are the ones we need to avoid. Why? Our blood cholesterol levels. So notice cholesterol is down here, but it's not included in my top 3 S's, right? Not because it doesn't start with an S, but that's because it's not the focus. So new science, new recommendations, what should we focus on for cholesterol? It's not cholesterol in food for cholesterol in your body. It's saturated fat in your food that ends up affecting your liver production of cholesterol. Because cholesterol in your body is produced in your liver. Now, cholesterol in your body is also affected only 25% by the diet. That leaves the other 75% to be, you can thank your parents, genetics, and how your body is. So it doesn't mean, okay, I don't have to pay attention to my food, because on the contrary, food can make a bad situation a whole lot worse. So if you're already with cholesterol and you're not taking care of how you're eating, it can make that situation a whole lot worse. So we're talking about taking smaller doses of medicine, having nice ranges of, your cholesterol level by focusing on having more, what's the good one? Unsaturated instead of saturated. So as we mentioned, the ones that we want to be cautious with, what's cholesterol, the body cholesterol, what's the concern with heart disease is that plaque. But we want to focus on unsaturated. What are our sources of saturated? That's one we have to be cautious with. This is the ones that we can practice more label reading. Well, a lot of processed foods, sweets, can have saturated fat, but also our dairy foods. And the bigger picture is animal products. So if it comes from an animal, it has saturated fat. Okay, so avocado does not have saturated fat. Olive oil does not have a lot of saturated, does have some, but it's mostly unsaturated. But if it comes from an animal, including milk and dairy products, this is where we can really see the difference between like a whole milk product and a low fat milk product. So where's my milk table? I think I have some here and some here. So you have some cheese and yogurt and you have some milk. So you can follow along there. I have the example of a milk up here. So sometimes when we move to low fat or fat free, you might think that other things change, but in reality, it's the skimming process. They take out some of the saturated fat. So who wants to see 1 cup of regular whole milk? What's the saturated fat? 5 grams? And then what I'm going to skip, I think it's like point number 5 or 6 on label reading, but I have to teach it now. It's the percentage. We're going to be looking at the percent to help us interpret whether a product is good or bad. Because as we look at grams, we see 5 grams of saturated fat. Does that seem high or low, or what's 5 grams? It sounds like a small amount, right? So that's not a good indicator, because then, we see all these grams or milligrams, and I can throw you numbers, but what's the chance you're going to remember? So there's a very easy way by looking at the percentage. The percentage is based on a 2,000 calorie diet, which not everyone needs a 2,000 calorie diet. And at the end of the day, it would need to add up to 100%. But it's just a quick rule of thumb to know if something is low or high. So you do have to remember 2 numbers for the percents. I don't know if you already see it on your handouts. Those 2 numbers are 5 and 20%. So I think, like I said, it's one of the other steps in the label. I just want to make sure, I don't know if you have it written down somewhere, or you would have to write the rule down so you don't forget that rule. Yes, perfect. So the colorful one, the gray box, it says the percent daily value, and it talks about 5% or 20%. And those are your 2 magical numbers that you're going to memorize. So following 5% is low, 20% is high. In a situation that we need to limit, we want it to be saturated fat to be around what percent? About 5. Yeah, so it's not going to be exactly 5. It could be 6%, but we want it to be closer to the 5 area than the higher than 5. So whole milk is how much per serving? Remember, 1 cup. 25%, is that high or low? High. If we go to 1% milk, what are we looking at? 8%. Is that high or low? It's lower, right? Question. It's up to you, because you're still allotted some saturated fat in your day. So it's not, the concern is too much saturated fat. So your body can handle some of it. It's not something you need 0. Trans fat is something we should definitely, 0. Yes. That's a good question. So, yeah, no, up to the age of 2 kids need the whole milk. Their bodies actually, their diets require more fat because of like brain development. Yes. So let me see. I thought I had some examples. Okay, so you can also substitute with milk or dairy alternatives. Almond milk is one example, or soy milk. That's more of a personal choice. If you're fine with the cow's milk, just buy the low-fat milk. So while almond milk and all those milks don't have fat, they're also just pretty much fancy waters that are fortified with a lot of things. So the almond milks, like these profiles, like in milk is high in calcium, potassium, like protein. The almond milk doesn't have the protein, but if you read the list, they fortify it with potassium, they add the calcium, and then they put that fancy label, like more calcium than cow's milk. Yeah, because the company added intentionally more calcium. It wasn't like magically. That's called a process of fortifying. The important thing is that you're getting some source of calcium in your diet 3 times a day. That's my dietitian concern is, are you getting milk, cheese, yogurt? Like, are you getting calcium in your diet? So it's up to you. The main concern with the almond milks or any of those milks is the amount of added sugar. So you have to buy the unsweetened. And now it's not as hard. There's more varieties of unsweetened vanilla, for example. You don't just have to get unsweetened plain. So if you do buy almond or soy or all those other milks, fancy waters with calcium, that's fine because you're getting your calcium and your vitamin D, but make sure it's unsweetened. If you don't know which one to choose, you can keep both containers in your fridge. Some days you can have unsweetened almond, some days you can have low-fat cow. Variety is always a good idea. Okay. Trans fats, again, if you have certain types of products like this, you would want to look at the label for these important words because trans fat may still say 0. Soon this will be out of our food system, but I still have to cover it really quickly because if you see these words, partially hydrogenated, any type of oil. So it could be partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil. It could be, those words partially hydrogenated means that it has trans fat. Okay? Trans fat here says 0 grams. Why is that allowed? So the FDA has all these, rules and there's rounding rules. Goes back, there's math in the label. So each category, for example, this has 150 calories per serving. It might be 152 calories, but for rounding, they have rounding rules for every category. You can round down. So for trans fat, the round down is at 0.5 or less per serving. You might think, what's 0.5? We're talking about microscopic amounts. These amounts do affect our blood cholesterol. It raises LDL and lowers HDL, which is not good. LDL is the one you want to lower, not raise. So if you see, the main point is you can't necessarily always trust this part. You have to, an ingredient list, I'll breeze over that at the end. It is listed in order of weight. But it's hard to discern everything on the ingredient list. But if there's one thing we're going to start to look at, check out if there's partially hydrogenated oil. And if you're going to look at, if you don't know where to start, any type of cake, dessert, coffee creamers, crackers, in general, crackers, not just Cuban crackers, look to see if they have partially hydrogenated. What was the question?
How do they get away with like?
Because it's less than 0.5 grams of the partially hydrogenated oil per serving. So some companies, they even actually reduced the serving size, which changed the label. Let's say this had 0.8 grams or something. Then they would have to have rounded up to 1 gram. Let's say that was 0.8 grams for 8 cookies. Now it's 4 cookies, so it could be 0.4 grams, which means they could round down. I don't know. I'm just throwing some things out there of what happened.
Sorry, I think I missed that. When you say partially or not partially, both of them, even the one that doesn't say partially, is also saturated.
No, those are two different things. So if a product has partially hydrogenated oil in the ingredient list, it means it has trans fat.
Trans fat, okay.
So this only partially hydrogenated relates to trans fat. Like I said, hopefully in the next year or 2 years, like when the FDA says you have to do something, they give companies time, like a lot of time, sometimes 3-4 years. So they keep extending that deadline to give companies a chance to reformulate, to take out that fat and add another fat, all that. So the good news is that companies are already doing that, but it's still out there. They're still using some partially hydrogenated. Okay, so if we remember the S's, serving size, saturated fat, and we had the whole discussion about fats too, and now the sodium. And this is honestly the denser part of, like, after this, we can breeze through, because again, this is where we're talking about your health. So what's the concern of sodium or too much sodium in the diet? Yes, heart disease. So again, we can talk about American Heart Association, heart disease, in particular, blood pressure. Okay, so too much sodium in the diet can affect your blood pressure. You still need sodium. So someone asked about saturated fat. You still need some sodium. The thing is that if you're eating out, which most of us are, okay, myself included, like we're busy people. If we're eating out, even if you're eating a healthy salad or a healthy, sandwich with whole grain bread and tuna, the sodium in the food can, the fat might be good, the total calories, like I was in a calorie range, but the sodium's really difficult to control when you're eating out. That's why most Americans are eating more than the recommended amount, which is 2,300 milligrams a day. American Heart Association recommends 1,500 milligrams if you have high blood pressure already. So these amounts, a regular restaurant dish, which usually has probably 3 or 4 portions for, 3 or 4 meals within one meal, but a restaurant dish can easily have the 1,500 milligrams of sodium. So I have a sodium table. In the middle is my sodium focus table. So everyone grab in that table a label. So those are products that can be high in sodium, anything canned. Someone grabbed the garden vegetable soup because vegetables are so healthy. The dietitian just said vegetables are, it's the box one. You can check, but no, sodium's not a concern for milk. Yeah, but you can always double check. And it's normal for food to have sodium. Again, it turns into biology lectures, but sodium, there's sodium channels. It's normal for foods to have some sodium. It's the amount of added sodium through processing. So there's some canned beans, canned vegetables. The point is canned. Soups are also high. Deli meats, although it can be a nice healthy sandwich, those deli meats can be very high. So we can easily reach that number. So let's use some examples. Chicken broth. So who's going to grab the garden vegetable? I want someone to look at okay. She has a broth. But we said, remember, the milligrams or grams can get confusing, so let's apply the percent rule. So let's look a little bit to the right. 6%. Now notice the front of it also says low sodium, right? If you look at the front. Yeah, so it's low sodium, but she verified. It's always good to, it's not that we don't trust, but get in the habit because sometimes it's hard to find where it says low sodium. It's not very catchy all the time. So always verify, 6% per serving. Okay, so what about the little box that you have in front of you? Yeah. Well, everyone has like a limit to work towards. If it's, I mean, zero is not zero, but 1,500 is usually, if you're on a low sodium diet, not just for heart reasons, a low sodium diet is usually 1,500 milligrams, which it's difficult. Like I said, a sub you can reach that with just like a sub. On the label, there's a sodium line. Yeah. Yeah, so we're looking at percent. Now, the garden vegetable soup. No, the one next to it. The little one. And the percentage. 27. But you didn't follow rule number 1. Rule number 1. What was rule number 1? Or step 1? So this box, garden vegetable, even says organic, guys. Like, really healthy, right? It's vegetables, though. We should aim for more vegetables. But it's a catchy box, right? What's the serving size? 1 cup. And servings per container? About 2. So what does that mean? What was the percentage of sodium? But you had the whole box. It's a small box, and it's vegetables, which are good. So 27, it was 27? So we're our math department. 27 times 2. 54%. So 1 small box of healthy vegetable soup it's not that. That's why it's hard to say it's healthy. Your vegetables are healthy. If it's in a soup, that's fine. But you just had 50% of your sodium intake. Or if you're that's according to 2,300. If you're following 1,500, she had 1,200 milligrams from just 1 box, which she might have even paired with a half sandwich. How many times we do half sandwich, half soup? That's like sodium plus more sodium. Unless, again, so it's not all soups that are like this, but if you're buying soups, you have to keep an eye on if you're making it at home, that's great. Or if you're making it at home with low sodium broth, that's the example that she used was the 6% one. It's a low sodium broth. It's really hard to find soups that are already made, like that are low sodium. It's not just hard to find. You can find them, but you have to look. Okay, it can say natural, it can say veggies and all this. You have to look at the label. Okay, vegetables, we have a regular can on the left, one in the middle that says 50% less salt, and one on the right that says no salt added. Okay, so the best thing you can do is buy the no salt added, not just low sodium. So you'll notice that no salt added has 10 milligrams, which rounds down to 0%. Again, these are negligible amounts, like 10 milligrams of sodium, that are naturally found in some foods, but it's still a 0%. There's no concern. Does that mean you need zero salt? No, it just means that you control, when you buy low sodium or no salt added, you control how much salt you can add to your food versus the company. If you buy the regular one, it's 13%. And all of them are for a half cup of vegetables. You could have more, like vegetables, green beans. No, corn is starchy, but if it was like green beans like we have there, like you can eat a cup of green beans. That's great. That's healthy. But if it's 13% for a half cup times two, you already had 26% of your sodium from just a side of vegetables, right? So keeping an eye for your sodium. So I'll stop because the rest will be really fast. Are there any? This is the part that if you're going to walk away with something, it's with this section of, the 3 S's. Are there any questions?
I have missed this part, but the percentage that you're looking at is the percentage
Yes.
of
I'll show you.
what's allowed.
So it's this box.
Okay.
So if it's 5%, it's low, and 20%, it's high, and that applies to the label, like the whole column. Yeah. Another hand.
Frozen veg,
Yes.
they're high in sodium.
So frozen is also fine, like canned. It's maybe even better, the frozen. But you want to buy the plain frozen vegetables because as soon as the words sound nice, right? Like seasoned whatever or garlicky spinach, but it's usually sodium and added saturated fats. So it's best to buy it plain. But then again, at home, you can prepare it once you cook it how you want or heat it up in the micro. You can prepare it, to your liking with the healthier olive oil instead of creamy stuff, or you can even put some low-fat mozzarella cheese on your vegetables. That's fine. You don't have to eat your veggies all plain just because you buy them plain, but you should buy them plain and then prepare them, yeah, because of the sodium and also the fat. That's a good question. And frozen veggies, buy one get one free deals. Like every time you go to another supermarket tip, even if you don't feel like you need vegetables, pass by the frozen vegetable section, see what's buy one get one free. Stock up your freezer. You never know when you just need to defrost, quickly cook some frozen spinach and you can add that to almost anything. And if it's buy one get one free, you're saving a lot of money. Even if you feel like you don't need them, it's good to keep your house stocked up with good stuff. Yes.
I was just going to ask you if there is any book that you recommend. I see that you have services, but also
Yes.
starting to read on your own.
I mean, you have a lot of information right in front of you with the label. There's not a book I can necessarily, just recommend, but we have free nutrition classes led by a dietitian. So I'm here with Baptist, myself and several other dietitians. We work in the community. We're from an unbiased source. We're just here to educate. So you also have a list of our classes. And on one of the handouts, our website where you can, see what classes we offer. And the 2 label reading handouts are probably more than enough, that you would need to understand the label. A part that I didn't, well, are we good? 5 more minutes? Because just to comment, there are more steps. I'm not focusing so much on this one because we know we need our vitamins and minerals. And on the contrary, I want you to use caution because if you look at milk, the calcium is going to be around 20%, which is high. It's things that we know, you can always check. But companies fortify foods to have more vitamins. It's easy to add vitamins to foods. So our favorite, I don't know if I have the pictures, Frosted Flakes, like they add vitamin D to it, and it's an excellent source of vitamin D, but it still makes it a sugary cereal, So don't be deceived because there might be a lot of vitamins and minerals because they could have been added during processing. It's not a bad thing, but we have to remember what's the food at large. So that's why I prefer you focus on the other, the sodium saturated fat. The ingredient list is a whole other story. There's a lot of ingredients to focus on, but if there's 2 that you're going to walk away with, we covered 1. That's the partially hydrogenated whatever oil. And then the second one I want you to focus on is when you're buying whole grains. Okay, so again, the list may be very long, but if you focus on just two things, for any type of cracker, bread, tortilla, any type or cereal, if you think you're buying a whole grain, look at the ingredient list and the first ingredient, look at it. Okay, because just because it says multi-grain or 12, 12 grains and seeds and all that good, and it's brown, you can't go by the color, okay? You have to look at the first word has to have the word whole. Now there's many types of grain. There could be wheat, it could be, there's a lot of types, as long as it says whole whatever grain, okay? You want to look for that word whole, whole, whole as the first ingredient, not if it's brown. So we covered, that's pretty much the whole review of, this applies to, like I said, the label is changing, but it's still the same rules that apply. There are some sugar examples we can go through if you have 5 more minutes, but I'd like to stop now, answer any last questions. Do you have to say something? We'll do some questions. Okay, I understand it's your lunch break and you have to get back. No, you don't have to apologize. Thank you for coming. You have to work. Yes. Okay. So if you take a multivitamin, what time of day? That's the question. So in general, be careful with supplements, but if you're not choosing milk every day, or multivitamins can be a supplement, a little safety blanket. Should always focus on trying to improve your diet to get the nutrients that you're not getting. But the multivitamin just, it has small amounts of a lot of vitamins, so it's generally safe. What time of day? To my knowledge, there's no particular time of day that it would be best because it's small doses of a lot of vitamins, so it shouldn't conflict with other, sources. So it could be any time of day. Yes. Okay. Good observation. You're really looking at the label, so that's good. Yes. Yes. So I like to start with, it can get confusing when we get lost, and there's food companies there's so many different types of breads now, like you said. So when we talk about bread, let's focus on the big picture. The main thing is we want the first ingredient to be a whole grain. When you choose a whole grain, the whole label will follow nicely, okay? So it's going to be high fiber because it's a whole grain as the first ingredient, because the ingredients are listed by weight. So if the main ingredient is a whole grain, that means it's going to have enough fiber per serving. So the fiber will be fine. What I'm realizing now with not just bread, pasta, they're adding fiber. I think that's going to be the new trend. You're going to start to see fiber added to like a lot of foods. And it could be like inulin or resistant starches, other words for fiber. It could be root, chicory, fiber. I don't know. The point is these are added fibers. There's nothing necessarily wrong with them, but we also don't have to blow up our stomachs with like a whole bunch of fiber from, fiber should be nicely distributed, in all our meals. Some cereals can give you more than half of your fiber intake from just like a half cup. You want to be careful with all that added fiber because it can really aggravate your stomach. So the main point is if you're buying a whole grain, you're going to get like an 18 or 20% fiber naturally from buying a whole grain. That's the benefit of eating whole grains. And the fiber has a lot of benefits. It provides fullness, especially, like people dieting and cutting rice. Go for the brown rice. Go for a half cup of brown rice. It's not a lot, but don't eliminate these healthy carbs that give energy, but also the fiber that helps you feel fuller. So for weight management, that's a good thing, when you eat something that can help you stay full, some whole grain, some protein. Remember the plate. Yes. So the recommendation is at least 25 grams for women. So if you want to look for grams, now we're going from the percentage to the gram. So if you do want to focus on numbers, 25 grams is for women. I think for men it's like 36 grams. If you're somewhere in the 25 gram area, that's how much we should aim for. You don't need to make everything whole grain, but the majority of your grains, like 50%, should be whole grain. So Usually we eat enough cookies and sweets that aren't whole grain. Yeah. But you don't need to make everything whole grain. But the more you make whole grain, the better. And I understand it's lunchtime is over. You guys, your bosses are calling.
When I read a carbohydrate, I see always the percentage being high, and it scares me, but I don't
Yeah.
even know what it is.
So yeah, you'll notice I didn't cover. It's not one of the main points. The total carbs. You need carbohydrates in your diet, and it comes down to people with diabetes. We teach them how to count. We call it carb counting, which you would look at the grams, and that's for people with diabetes or on insulin. For a regular healthy diet, we talk about servings. So a half cup of rice, pasta, one slice of bread, that's one serving. And you can have one, at least one for sure, up to three servings of grain per meal. So it comes down to a half cup. It's a whole other lecture. That's why I didn't get into. Yeah. That's it. I have to give up the mic.
All right, so I want to thank you. She's going to be here a little bit afterwards if you still have any of the questions that you may need answered or want answered. So I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank those that have streamed online. And I want to thank Lucette and Baptist Health for coming out and participating in our wellness program. We will be sending out the presentation in email, so then you can have that plus the flyers if you are on the webcast. You'll be able to have those as well. Yes. 95210.org. Yes, or you can just email me at pawswellness@fiu.edu, and I can give you all the information. You can also call me at 305-348-2530, so extension 2530, and I can also run you through that if you have any hiccups with logging in. I can walk you through that as well. Nathan, yes. PAWS Wellness, PAWS. Yes. Yes, so then I'm going to say thank you. I do have a T-shirt, so once we sign off, I will ask you a little bit of a question. Person that gets it right is going to get one of our Wellness Journey T-shirts. All right, here's Evis with a little bit of an announcement.
Well, thank you. My name is Evis from Baptist Health, South Florida. Thank you, Lucette, for being here. I also wanted to provide you with some resources. If you go to baptisthealth.net, you can go through to our community health programming. We have exercise programs that are probably close to your, if you can't make it to the ones here in the office, you can also make it to the ones that we have in our communities. We also have different sessions that, like what Lucette mentioned, we have several sessions in the community that provide health education that can help supplement what you're learning here today. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you, Nathan, for having Baptist Health South Florida as one of your partners.